In the shadowed streets of a nameless city, a vampire walked in silence, his steps leaving no echo. Known only as Lucian, he was a creature of mystery and dread, a solitary figure who had endured the passing centuries, driven by an unfathomable curse he dared not reveal. Unlike the young, reckless vampires who flaunted their darkness, Lucian concealed himself in shadow, feeding sparingly and leaving no trace. The mortals who crossed his path only sensed a coldness, a faint brush with despair. But something had changed in recent nights. A strange, insatiable hunger gnawed at him. His carefully rationed hunts left him weaker than ever. His body yearning for more, yet more did nothing to satisfy him. His senses sharpened, and he became aware of others lurking in his domain, eyes watching him from every corner. An ancient order of vampires, he realized, was closing in, seeking him for reasons unknown. The streets grew emptier, the silence more oppressive, and he began to see visions. Faces of those he had once known and loved long since perished whispered to him from the darkness, blaming him for the lives he'd taken and the curses he'd unleashed. These whispers told him of a reckoning, of a dark secret that had taken root in his own blood. Was he cursed not only by his nature but by a darkness even he did not understand? One night, in a decaying alley, he confronted one of these watchers, a tall figure cloaked in black, eyes like frozen embers. But when Lucian reached for him, the figure melted away, leaving only a shiver of laughter on the wind. A chilling message echoed in Lucian's mind. Asterisk, you are close to uncovering the truth. But beware, for the truth will destroy you. Asterisk, Lucian, now hunted by shadows and haunted by memories, realized he had no choice but to seek the heart of this mystery, even if it meant facing a darkness that would unravel everything he had ever known about himself. But what lay at the end of this quest was uncertain. Would he finally learn the origin of his unquenchable hunger? Or would he be consumed by the ancient forces lurking in his past? Lucian retreated to the old mansion he claimed decades ago, its forgotten halls and crumbling walls mirroring his decaying soul. As he moved through the darkened corridors, a presence lingered, a feeling that he was not alone. The portraits of strangers who had once lived in this place seemed to watch him, eyes following his every movement, their stares accusing. He lit a candle in a hidden chamber deep within the mansion's catacombs, a sanctuary where he once sought refuge from his darker impulses. Yet tonight, even here, the shadows writhed, the candlelight flickered, and he caught glimpses of faces in the flame, each one a mortal life he had claimed, each pair of eyes reflecting pain and betrayal. Then, a name whispered through the silence. Asterisk, Isolde. Asterisk, Lucian froze. The name was a relic of his mortal past, a memory he'd buried along with the last shreds of his humanity. Isolde had been his beloved, a healer in a small village where he had once lived as a man, a woman who had known nothing of darkness until he'd been turned. Driven by the hunger of his newborn curse, he'd returned to her, unable to resist the pull of her warmth. But his bite had done something strange, something unnatural. She hadn't died, nor had she transformed. Instead, she'd faded into a shadow, vanishing before his eyes. Her last words, "I will find you again," had haunted him ever since. And now, her name was spoken by voices in the shadows. He began to realize that the order hunting him, these other vampires who seemed to know his every move, might be connected to Isolde. Could she have found a way to exist beyond death, gathering others who sought vengeance or answers? Or was this merely another trick of his fractured mind, tormenting him with guilt and regret? In that moment, he knew he couldn't hide any longer. He would have to confront the ancient order, face whatever truth lay behind his curse, and find out if Isolde's spirit truly haunted him, or if something even darker was pulling the strings. Leaving the mansion behind, Lucian set out into the night, heart pounding with a strange mix of hope and dread. Somewhere in the labyrinthine alleys of the city, the answers waited, and he could feel them calling to him. The darkness around him thickened, and he stepped forward, wondering if he was walking toward his salvation or his doom. Lucian moved through the twisting alleys, his senses heightened, each step drawing him closer to the source of the whispers. The streets felt narrower, darker, as if closing in around him. He followed faint echoes, fragmented words that dissolved before he could grasp their meaning. each syllable tugging him deeper into the shadows. After hours of wandering, he arrived at a hidden courtyard, one he had never seen in all his years in the city. Vines crept over cracked stone, the air thick with the scent of ancient earth. In the center of the courtyard stood a weathered statue, half buried in moss, depicting a robed figure with hollow eyes that seemed to look directly at him. From behind the statue, a figure emerged, cloaked in black, their face obscured beneath a hood. Though Lucian had prepared himself for an encounter with one of the shadowy hunters, there was something unsettlingly familiar about this stranger. They lifted their head, revealing a face from the past Isolde's face, but it wasn't her. Or at least, it wasn't how he remembered her. Her skin was pale, nearly translucent, her eyes dark and hollow, yet glowing with an unnatural light. Her lips parted, but when she spoke, her voice was like a dozen voices woven together, all echoing with anguish. "Lucian," she said, the sound reverberating around him. "Did you think you could escape what you did to me? That you could run from the curse that bound us?" Lucian felt himself stumble backward. "Isolde, how can it be you? I watched you vanish." Her gaze sharpened, her mouth twisting with bitterness. "You left me in a place between life and death, Lucian. I was neither mortal nor immortal, trapped in a shadow of existence. But I found others, like me, souls broken by your kind, and together, we grew powerful enough to find you." As she spoke, more figures emerged from the shadows, each with the same hollow, ghostly look. Lucian felt the weight of their gazes, a silent accusation from the ones he had wronged over the centuries. They were his unfinished shadows, neither dead nor alive, tied to him through his careless hunger. Isolde raised a hand, and Lucian felt his strength drain, his vision blurring as if her very presence was a poison. "You thought your curse was merely a hunger, Lucian, but it is more. It binds you to every soul you devour. They are pieces of you, fragments of your soul, and they demand retribution." With his vision dimming, Lucian realized that he could no longer run, no longer hide from the broken souls that hunted him. He fell to his knees, gasping for breath as shadows closed in around him, cold and unyielding. But just as he felt himself slipping, Isolde leaned close, her voice a whisper against his ear. "I will not grant you peace, Lucian. Not yet. There is one way you could atone, but it will cost you everything. Find the *source dash the ancient origin of your curse. Only then may you finally end this torment." The shadows pulled away, leaving him weak but alive. Lucian lay alone in the courtyard. Realizing the true nature of his curse, he was bound not just by hunger, but by the lives he had stolen. He now had a mission, but the path was unknown, and the threat of his haunted past lingered. With the memory of Isolde's hollow eyes seared into his mind, Lucian rose to his feet. Somewhere in the ancient depths of darkness, the source awaited an origin older and more powerful than any creature of the night. But the journey there would force him to face horrors he had only ever dreamed of. Lucian wandered for years in search of the source, his once sharp senses dulled by exhaustion and his strength waning with each encounter. His quest took him to the far reaches of forgotten lands and into the depths of ancient crypts, where whispers of arcane knowledge and fragments of lost curses only fed his despair. The shadows of those he'd consumed haunted him relentlessly, their pale faces flickering at the edge of his vision, a constant reminder of his sins. At last, he arrived at the ruins of an ancient temple buried beneath the earth, a place so old that even the stones seemed haunted. This, he knew, was the end of his journey. Within, he could feel a pulsing energy, a heartbeat of darkness that resonated with his very soul. Lucian forced himself forward, stepping into the heart of the temple where a circle of faint light illuminated a well, carved from obsidian. Dark symbols spiraled around its edges, words he could not understand but felt within him a language of blood and sorrow, older than time. He gazed into the well and saw his reflection, distorted, shadowed, yet it was not his face alone. Thousands of faces stared back at him, the faces of his victims, each one twisted in pain. They mouthed silent words, their expressions filled with betrayal and suffering. Lucian fell to his knees, reaching out a trembling hand to touch the cold edge of the well. His voice cracked as he whispered, "I am sorry. For all of it. For what I became. For what I did to you." The shadows seemed to pulse, and the faces in the well grew clearer, sharper, as if acknowledging his words. But instead of forgiveness, he felt their rage sharpen. They could not be freed by his regret alone. Only blood would satisfy the ancient curse, and Lucian knew what he must do. Taking a final breath, he leaned over the well, feeling the weight of his endless years pressing down on him. His blood, a dark and thick essence, began to drip into the well, each drop absorbed with a faint hiss. His vision blurred, and he felt his body weakening, dissolving as if he were being pulled into the very essence of darkness he had sought to escape. As his life ebbed away, he saw a final vision, a distant memory of Isolde, standing in a field under the sun, her smile warm and untouched by the curse he had brought upon her. And for a fleeting moment, he felt a sense of peace, a quiet he had not known since his first taste of blood. But as he faded, the faces in the well twisted into cold, silent watchers, their expressions unforgiving. Lucian's existence had ended, his soul absorbed into the source, his essence bound to the curse he could not escape. The well pulsed once more, the faces dissolving back into shadow, leaving only silence in the ancient temple. In the darkness, Lucian was no more just another shadow in the depths, forever trapped. His soul a silent, haunted memory that would never know rest.